Hey, what's going on, everyone? Joe Menza here, and I want to do something a little bit different in style and look. And I've decided to call this one the Ink Blot because it kind of has that effect. We're going to purely go with shapes and simple brush strokes and come up with something that, when looked at from a distance, has a unique look to it. So first thing I'm just doing a quick wet of the paper, and I'm just going to dance in some ultramarine blue with some Payne's gray. Unlike other videos where I put the raw sienna down first, I'm going to put some different shades in here. Going back to this is more of a cobalt-y type color. And the important thing here is to leave some space between the clouds. Unlike solid colors or, coming in with the paddling brush stroke, we're just going to leave some space in here, and we're just going to let it fall where it falls. And there's something very powerful about, the white spots, and these stand out. And you can see how we sort of have this ambiguous shape here in the clouds. And the blue just kind of running down. It almost looks like rays of light. Now I'm going to put that a little bit on the bottom here too, just to kind of get things going. Probably has a little bit of a wintry, cold effect to it because the colors are cool. But basically we're going to stick with just basic shapes. This is just sort of dancing around, almost, how should I say, I can't think of the word now. I'm drawing a blank. It'll come to me soon, but we're not specifically painting anything. Our goal is to just go for shapes. Now I'm just putting in some trees and letting the bristles do the work. And I'm just varying in some ultramarine blue, Payne's gray, some yellows, cad yellow. You can use lemon yellow. Keeping those spaces in, we're just going to take advantage of the contrast between the dark and the light. Colors that kind of go harmonious together. Oh, the word I was thinking of was abstract. So this is kind of abstract in a sense. I'm just coming back in with the fan brush. And here's my other fan brush I just found. Thought I had lost. You ever go through that? Where's that blue tube I had? Where's that tube of white? Where's that brush that I had? I'm constantly misplacing stuff. So again, I'm just kind of varying it up between the blues, Payne's gray, yellow. And so we have these pineish, I'll come up with a new word, is pineish a word? Pineish looking trees here. And again, we're going to try to leave white beneath that. So we've got the alternating white, the darks, the contrast, and it'll just be a sort of a feast for the eyes. And now you're looking at that sky. Look at that sky, just has a lot of power to it. And a lot of it isn't even what I did, but it just happened to be that way. We've got a little bit of an arc on the right. We've got some white in the middle that could either be some distant mountains or some clouds or some kind of bursting energy. And by doing this quickly and doing this in an abstract manner and kind of letting things fall where they fall, it just has a spontaneity to it. It has a certain power to it. I'm just trying to use the brushes here to make things look sort of ragged on the edges. Turning the brush sideways. Again, let the brush do the work for you. Varying up those blues, those greens, overlaying. And when you do this and you do your sky, don't try to copy my sky. Do your own pattern, because not only can't you copy someone exactly with something so random, but you won't even be able to reproduce it yourself. Everyone, like a snowflake, everyone will be unique. So again, looking at this, it's reminiscent of an ink blot. When you see like an ink blot and everyone has a different idea of the shape, what it reminds them of, this will have that sort of characteristic. Some people immediately will have a wintry feeling. Some people will think of maybe something from a movie. I oftentimes, with my mountains and things, I'll have people either say it looks like Game of Thrones or The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. So now we're going to put another line of trees in below that one. So we've got the space in there. And if you want sort of rays of light in the sky, like I have, the brush strokes going horizontal or on an angle will give you a better effect of that. So if you want to go for that, that's the way you would do it. So again, I'm doing the very same thing I did above, a little bit darker this time because it's in a sense closer. Using the fan brush, you can use the Hake brush, but I'm using the fan brush to create another line of trees. So like I said, we have these alternating, contrasting areas. We got that burst in the sky, then we hit into that dark tree, and then we hit into another line of trees below. And we didn't really set out to paint anything specific, so what we have is just a very eye-catching painting that's somewhat abstract. I'm just touching up the top tips or tops of these trees. Just want them to have the right shape. And these here is just purely for fun. You know, you're not... Every painting that you're doing, especially early on, but I'm this way all the time. Every painting is actually an experiment. I mean, unless I'm really like going into a painting and I'm trying to be very specific to get something come out a certain way, but every painting that I do, there is a level of experimentation in there. I don't really know what's going to happen. I think that's the excitement of watercolor. If you're doing oils, you have to be very specific. There is no what's going to happen, because when they dry, they pretty much dry like you see them. Watercolor, when that paper sucks in the water and, you know, the paint dries and you look back at it and you have something pretty amazing. That's why watercolor has the interest that it does, I think. And interestingly, when you're doing watercolor, what you're putting down, you almost have to get into the groove of what I'm painting, what I'm putting on paper. If it looks exactly the way you want it, it's not going to look the way you want it when it dries. So you almost have to paint it in a way you don't want it, and hope that it dries the way you do want it. And that only comes from practice. So I think we'll finish off the bottom with a final layer. We'll leave a little hole in there just so there's not so much light at the bottom that it is distracting to the viewer. The main course for the viewer is to come from the bottom up into that center. You've got that sort of erupting effect in the sky. And then each layer you come down, you're looking at, or you can go up from the bottom, but each way you're going to have the brain kind of trying to figure out what it's looking at, and when it pieces it together, that's the idea of somewhat abstract. I mean, fully abstract paintings where there's just like triangles and circles and things like that, yeah, you can see whatever you want to see, but you kind of want them to see what you want them to see here. But you want it to be ambiguous. So now I'm just filling in these areas with a little bit, all variations. I mean, this one here, you could call it a limited palette because I think we have about 4 colors, maybe 5 colors, but your palette should always be somewhat limited. Really, I mean, if you're using 20 colors in a painting, you're probably not going to have any harmony in that. Okay, so still really working on the basic shapes here. Just some changes to the colors, slight variations. But not a lot. We're keeping within the same theme, sort of this bluish green sort of theme here, just to kind of keep things harmonized a bit. There, we'll zoom in a little bit and you can see just how I've kind of brushed in these little treetops. And each one of them, when you look at how the brush hits the paper, it's like a distant tree. So you can do this as much as you want to. I try to randomize it, keeping looking natural, so they're not. If you have all these little points lined up, it looks a little too repetitive. So I try to make it look as random and natural as possible, as much as you can, being you're the decider of how things look. Okay, so again, a very, very simple scene. When you're doing this, just do your sky, leave some white, and then about halfway down, start putting in your horizon and your treetops. And if you don't have a fan brush, I mean, just use a drier, pointier, you can use a mop too, a smaller, pointier mop type brush if you want to. You can use the drier, if you can get the ends of the hake to cooperate, you can do almost the same thing as the fan brush. But I like the fan brush because it's so flat, and also it doesn't hold a lot of water on it. So if you're trying to just get more paint on the paper, the hake holds a lot of water. So if you're using the hake, you want to kind of dry it, squeeze it out, get more paint on there, and just kind of dab in those treetops sideways with the hake. So I just sprayed this line was a little too hard for my liking. So I'm giving it a little spray with the spray bottle, and I'm just kind of dabbing it a little bit. I don't want to get too rough with it, but it's such a hard line that the focus might be on it a little too much. So I just kind of dab that out a little bit. Got to be careful with that kind of stuff because you can really make a mess. So now just to break up these solids here, I'm just flicking it with a little clear water and just doing a little bit of lifting here and there with a tissue, just taking out a little bit of paint just to have little areas of light and dark. You can do that if you go too solid in an area, lift a little back out again. Again, I'm flicking with the toothbrush. If you do a quick wipe with a towel, you could take off little circular areas. There's a lot of ways you can go with it. Kind of do what you feel. So this is pretty much it for this painting. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's an easy one. Maybe you'll give it a try. Let's take a look at it. After I'm done doing a little dabbing here, we'll look at it in a mount. So here it is on my easel in a mount. I think it turned out pretty well. Let's zoom in. Look at those streaks coming down. That line isn't so hard, but the little bursts of light really make things. And then some light into the water area. And just where I've dry brushed, you can see the light reflecting it. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I greatly appreciate it. Have a great day.